Welcome to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, the podcast where we dive deep into the journey from vision to reality. I'm Kelly Jackson, your guide on this path of self-discovery, transformation, and intentional living. Here, we explore everything from mindset shifts and personal growth to spiritual alignment and entrepreneurship, sharing insights, stories, and actionable wisdom to help you live a life in harmony with your dreams. Every episode will dig into what it means to not only dream big, but to actually consciously create the life you envision. Let's turn your dreams into real life. Welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. We have all heard of heroes in myths and movies and fairy tales, but what if I told you the hero's journey isn't just something for storybooks? It is the story that you're living right now. The hero's journey is the universal map of transformation, and every single one of us is walking it. But instead of just talking about the hero's journey like Joseph Campbell, which is amazing, but overdone, okay, we're going to bring this down into personal self-love and life transformation because I know that you don't just want theory. You want to see how this applies to your story, your pain, and your power. So that's what we're going to do. The question is, do you recognize yourself in it? Do you see where you are on your own journey? When I said, do you recognize yourself in it, I meant in the hero's journey. Do you see where you are on your own hero's journey? In this episode, we're going to map your life onto this epic path. And I promise, once you do, you will never see your struggles or your growth or your self-love journey the same way again. Buckle up because we going for a ride and it's going to be a good one. Okay, we're going to start with the call to adventure. Every hero begins in the ordinary world. The familiar, the safe, the routine, right? And then something whispers, or maybe shouts. It's a call to step out, to grow, to change. I just got chills when I said that too. Like they started from my feet, went up my legs, and then came down my arms. That was wild. So sometimes the call to adventure is loud, okay? A breakup, a job loss, a health scare. Other times, like I said, it's a whisper. That nagging sense of there's something more for me than this. If y'all recall, part of my story was before when I was in a marriage and wearing busy like a badge of honor, workaholic, very unhealthy. One of the things that I used to cry every day, and one of the things I used to say every single day when I would just cry is there must be more to life than this. There must be more to life than this. I was stuck in a loop and I didn't know at the time. But let's keep going because this is going to get so juicy and so good, guys. The call is often inconvenient. It rarely shows up when we feel ready. Okay, that's the point. Growth never waits for perfect timing. So because of that, because it's rarely convenient, right? It's often inconvenient. Many of us resist the call at first. We pretend we didn't hear it, but the call always returns. Louder each time until we acknowledge it. That kind of reminds me of, y'all may or may not know, but my favorite book in the universe is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, which is ironic because 95% of all the books I read are nonfiction. However, this one book, I read it every year. It was a life changer for me, a catalyst, and I just treasure this book. But one of the things that he says, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is that it is best to listen to what the heart has to say, right? Because the whisper will become a roar. Okay, so we can pretend like we don't hear it, but it's going to return and it's going to be louder each time. And that whisper will eventually become a roar. And if you haven't read The Alchemist, here's your sign. Pick up a copy. You'll want to own a copy. Don't just borrow a copy. You're going to want a copy in your home. Now, in real life, the call, quote unquote, can be as simple as realizing you can't betray yourself anymore. Like you can't keep living small. You can't keep dimming your light. You can't keep doing what you've been doing and expecting something else to happen. The moment you say yes to the call, even if it's just quietly in your own heart, even if it's not some big public declaration, the journey begins. You don't have to pack your bags and set off across the world. The call to adventure is simply your soul asking you to wake up, pay attention, and start walking toward who you want to be. And some of us like to pack our bags and run away. That was me too. I was like, let me just run away from all of this. But that's not the kind of adventure you're being called to go on. Okay? You're not being called to run away. You're being called to go on the adventure that's happening within your own self and your own life. So I mentioned sometimes we'll resist the call. And I want to talk about that a little more, like facing resistance and refusal. Because of course, the first thing a hero often does after hearing the call is say no. Resistance is part of the journey. Resistance is natural because change feels like death to the ego. Your old self clings hard to what's familiar. Don't want to let it go. It's got that death grip, you know. Fear convinces you that you're not ready, that you're not smart enough, you're not stable enough, you're not healed enough. You're not this, that, or the other enough. But fear is just the ego trying to keep you safe. As a reminder, that is the ego's job, it wants to keep you safe. And so there's not something wrong with you because this is happening. But what I'm asking you to do here is like, we got to bring our awareness to this, and you have to understand that this is what's happening. That your old self is just clinging to it because it's familiar, and your ego doesn't want to be wrong or different yet. It doesn't know. So fear's convincing you, you're not ready. You can't do it. You're not safe. Nope, 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 nope. And if you notice in stories, heroes always protest. I can't do this. That's you too. And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It means you're a human. Okay? Many people get stuck here forever. They live a whole life refusing the call. And deep down, they know it. That's where bitterness lives. You ever met someone who's, on in their life? I'm saying on in their life. I'm not talking about a teen or a 20 or even a 30-year-old, right? But someone who's on in their life and they're bitter and they're angry and they're pretty much just mad at the world. And well, there is a pretty good possibility there that a lot of that's coming from this place of them refusing the call to become who they're really meant to become. And so it's just turned into bitterness. Because kind of like I was saying earlier, when I cried every day when I was so unhappy, it was like, there must be more to life than this. Imagine every day feeling like there must be more to life than this and then not doing anything about it. You probably become a little bitter, right? Guys, saying yes doesn't erase fear. I want to be clear about that. It just means that you choose courage in the face of it. And I know that you can do that. If you're in resistance right now, I want you to remember this. Resistance doesn't mean stop. It means something big enough is calling you that fear had to show up too. I'm going to say that again. Resistance does not mean for you to stop. It doesn't mean stop. It means that something so big is calling upon you. It's so big that the fear also had to show up because this is out of your comfort zone. You're being called to something that, yes, it's scary because you ain't been there before. You ain't done that yet. And you don't yet know how you're going to do it. We're going to get into that. But so just remember that, okay? Now, I want to talk a little bit about allies and mentors and guides because no hero journeys alone. Every story gives the hero allies and mentors to walk beside them. If you think of Yoda to Luke, I'm a Star Wars girly. In your life, guides might show up as teachers or coaches or even podcasts, okay? Sometimes mentors do not look like what you would expect. They can be a friend who believes in you. It could be a stranger's book. It could even be your own inner voice. Like, who knows what way, shape, or form a mentorship may arrive in your life. And it may come in the form of another person, but maybe 100% not the person you imagined. Allies remind you that you're not crazy for wanting more. They normalize your growth. You ever had, I know you have, and I had one as soon as I said that bam, popped into my mind. An ally. Someone on this journey that, do y'all remember the episode I did, Be Delulu Until It's True? Okay, if you haven't already tuned into that one, go tune into Be Delulu Until It's True. Anyway, the whole idea about that and this and your heroes and your journey, your ally on your journey, someone came to my mind on my path who, what I just said, like someone who reminds you you're not crazy for wanting more and they normalize your growth. This person that popped into my mind, and I know you've got people like this in your life, someone who uplifts and who they hype you up and they're like, yes, even if it seems so far-fetched, they're like, if anybody can do it, you can do it. I believe in you. Yes, 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 right? You are growing. You have come so far. If you have already come this far, imagine how much further you can go. Guys, these are your allies. There's someone in your life, right, who sees you and your potential and who is telling you, let it be me. You are not crazy for wanting more. Okay, I will be your ally on this journey. You might also lose people here, okay, in this, the ones who prefer the quote old you in this phase, right? That's okay. Every hero has to walk with those who are aligned for the journey ahead. So some of these people who prefer the old you, okay, that was the chapter they were in. That was the scene they were cast for. They were cast for earlier scenes in the movie, the novel, the whatever, and now you're moving forward. And so it's okay. That character doesn't have a role in your future. So let it go. Don't take it personally. The 4 amendments, take nothing personally. Anyway, that's a whole nother book, but we won't get into that right now. Now, self-love becomes your ultimate ally, even though you have these other allies, because it's the one whispering, you are worthy of this path. Self-love is you knowing that you are worthy of this. If you are wondering where your allies are, start by saying yes to the call, period. When you step on the path, your teachers always appear. I know you've heard that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Even the fact that you are tuned into this podcast hosted by your self-love bestie. I told you self-love becomes your ultimate ally. Okay, so you are already on the path. Well, then when you're on the path, there's going to be an ordeal, the ordeal, trials, shadows, and initiation. Because every hero meets trials, dragons to slay, shadows to face, fears to overcome. This is the heart of the journey. Your dragons may not breathe fire, okay? They may look like self-doubt. They may look like burnout. They may look like perfectionism. They may look like old wounds. Maybe it's an ex who does breathe fire. I don't know. The shadow always rises here. The parts of you that you would rather not see, that's what happens. And shadow work is a core initiation. I have plenty of episodes that are dedicated to shadow work. You can scroll through, and right there in the titles, you will see the words shadow or shadow work. There's probably 3 or 4. You can also listen The Dark Night, What Breaks You and Also Builds You. That's a good one too for shadow work. Now, and of course, we do shadow work inside of Self-Love Uni. That's a huge part of the work that we do. As always, you can find out more at whatyoumont.us/discover self-love uni with little hyphens in between each word. Or I always post it in the details in the show notes. Make it easy for you. Let's keep going. I want you to notice, well, actually, let me say this first. The ordeal isn't punishment. The ordeal is not punishment. It's training. You're in training. It is shaping you into someone capable of carrying the treasure. Remember, I've told you this before. If you were to, if you had a genie in a bottle and they were going to grant you 3 wishes and you could get any of your 3 wishes, could you keep the things you got? Like the health, the body, the relationship, the money, the career, the home, the lifestyle, whatever it is you want. If I just waved my magic wand, had my magic genie, poof, it's yours. Could you sustain it? Could you maintain it? Probably not, because if you knew how to do any of that, you probably could have already achieved it. If you understood how to acquire it and maintain and sustain it. What I'm saying is this: the journey is such an important part. It's who you become. The treasure, and the treasure can be whatever the treasure is in your mind, all those things we just named. The ordeal, the trials, the tribulations, the shadows, the whatever the ordeal is, again, it's not punishment, and it's training, and it's shaping you into the version of you who's capable of holding it all, having it all, receiving it all, and then being able to sustain it, hold it, maintain it, keep it. Okay? Because I know you hear about people who win the lottery and then they bankrupt. Because if you aren't the kind of person who knows what to do with millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, because the most you've ever made is $75,000 a year before taxes, well, you don't know what to do with all that money. And so that's why so many people that you hear, I'm using an example that I'm sure you've all heard about, win the lottery and then end up broker than they were before. Okay? So I want you to notice how trials often repeat the same type of relationship, the same fear. That's life handing you the lesson until you pass. Guys, I talk about this often, that this is like where self-mastery comes in. We will continue to get the same lesson. It will look a little different. It'll be wrapped up a little different. The package might be a little different, but it's like the same lesson over and over and over again until you pass. Remember, this is Earth School. Okay? There's a fantastic episode all about patterns. Tune into that. Guys, I like a really, 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 really good one. It's going to make you so self-aware. So tune into that on patterns. But I want you to notice how these trials repeat, right? The patterns. That's a lesson. That there's something there for you to take away. This stage, the ordeal stage, is messy and raw. Yes, it is. However, it's also where the deepest transformation happens, okay? So if you are in the thick of it, remember, this isn't a detour. This is the path. Every scar becomes part of your power. This is the path. Every movie, every book, every whatever you've read, the hero's journey, the hero has to go through the messy, raw part, guys. You can't avoid this part. Now, I want to share a story with you about a young woman who set out to climb a mountain. And at the base, she was handed a backpack and told that she would need it along the way. So at first, the pack was light. It was just a few supplies. But as she climbed, every obstacle seemed to add something new to it. A stone for each failure, a book for responsibility, a weight for each heartbreak. She hated the pack. It slowed her down. She dreamed of tossing it off the cliff just to feel free. But near the summit, exhausted, she finally opened it. And to her surprise, what she thought were useless weights had transformed. The stones had become stepping stools, and the heavy books had become maps, and the weights had become tools. Everything that she had been carrying was exactly what she needed to make it to the top. The burdens of the journey aren't punishments. They're preparation. On your hero's journey, what feels heavy now often becomes the very treasure that empowers you later. So let's talk about the treasure and the transformation, because after trials, the hero discovers the treasure. And often it's not what they thought they were looking for. Sometimes the treasure is freedom. Sometimes it's peace. Sometimes it's simply remembering your own worth. And the treasure is rarely material. It's an inner transformation that shifts everything around you. Because as we know, when your inner world shifts, your outer world reality shifts. So that means if you were living with lack and scarcity before, you will be living with the sense of abundance now. That is going to be reflected in your outer world, which may manifest as material things also. But you have to understand that's not the point. That's just a bonus. What you gain is not just for you. Okay, it's medicine you'll eventually share with others. Integration is key. Otherwise, the treasure stays theoretical instead of lived. Okay, so this new version of you holds wisdom that the old you couldn't even imagine. And this is the glow people notice when they say, "You've changed." Yeah, and that was the point. Every hero eventually circles back to their ordinary world, but now they're not the same person. Returning home can feel disorienting because you see everything with new eyes, but others may not understand your transformation. If some of you can relate to that, I can relate to you. This is where self-love protects you. It grounds you when people still expect the old you. Your job, though, is not to convince anyone, not to prove anything to anyone. Your presence itself radiates the treasure. Sometimes home, isn't a place. It is an inner sense of belonging that you have never had before. And that's kind of what I mean when I'm talking about integration. Integration here means living out your new truth day by day. And remembering that the journey never ends at the return. It simply readies you for the next call. You are the hero, guys. The hero's journey, it's not just a myth. It's not something that Joseph Campbell made up in his own mind. It is the mirror of your own life right now. Every struggle that you have faced fits somewhere on this map. You are not behind. You are on the path. And you don't have to slay dragons or climb mountains to be a hero. Choosing yourself and choosing self-love, that's heroic. Especially in a world that is plagued with self-abandonment and self-loathing. Imagine if you could see your current challenge. I'll give you a second to think of what that is. Not as failure, but as an initiation. How differently would you move through it? You are not waiting for the story to begin. Guys, you are living the story now. Wake up to that. Self-love is the secret ingredient that makes you magnetic on the journey. Last week's episode or 2 weeks ago maybe, was all about being magnetic, how to become magnetic. So tune into that one. Because this is how you carry yourself through every stage. You are the hero of your own story, and every step that you take toward loving yourself more fully is a step closer or deeper into your epic becoming. So here's the truth. You are already on the hero's journey. And if you're listening, it's because you heard the call. Maybe faintly, maybe loudly, I don't know, but you are walking the path of transformation, whether you realize it or not. And self-love is the torch that you carry through every stage. If you want to walk this path with more courage and more clarity and more compassion for yourself, Self-Love Uni is where we do that work together. That's where you learn to embrace your shadows and honor your journey and step fully into the treasure of who you already are. Which reminds me of one of my favorite little mantras, if you want to call it that. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. I want to continue this episode, but with a slight shift of perspective. So we're going to kind of talk about what we talked about now, but a little bit different. And I want to talk about why we're all drawn to heroes. Because from childhood fairy tales to blockbuster movies, we've always been obsessed with heroes. Why? Because the hero archetype reflects something universal within us, that deep knowing that we too are meant to rise. And guys, it's not about capes or saving cities. It's about being the champion of your own life, becoming the champion of your own life. I want you to think about your favorite childhood hero. Superman, Wonder Woman, Moana, Harry Potter, whoever it may be. What do they all have in common? They all started ordinary, just like us. That's why we resonate. Their story whispers, you're capable of more than you realize. The reason we love hero stories is because they mirror our inner longing for growth. A hero's journey is really a metaphor for human transformation. Every obstacle they face, that's your shadow work, your heartbreak, your burnout. Okay? Neurologically, humans are wired for story. When we hear about someone overcoming, our dopamine spikes. And it's not just entertainment. Like, our brain is practicing resilience by imagining ourselves in their shoes. But here's the catch. We love watching heroes, but many of us avoid being the hero. It feels safer to admire from afar. The truth is that every challenge in your life, like I said, has been training you. You're not waiting for a hero to arrive. You are the one. You. Yes, you. Look in the mirror right now, or any reflective surface, even if it is your cup full of water. I want you to look at your reflection and look yourself in the eye and say, I am the hero of my life. I am the hero of my life. I am the hero of my life story. Okay? So let's take this universal archetype and turn it into something deeply personal. How to claim your role as the hero in your own story. So since we know every hero story begins with the call, in that moment when something nudges you out of comfort, again, a breakup, a diagnosis, burnout, this restless feeling that says there's more than this, whatever the case may be. In stories, the hero rarely jumps to the call, okay? They resist. That's human nature. We cling to comfort even when it's suffocating us. Go figure. Psychologically, this resistance is your brain's survival instinct. The subconscious is wired for familiarity, not happiness. That's why, have you ever heard the quote, the little saying, better the devil you know? It feels safer than the unknown. Okay? In real life, the call often comes disguised as a problem. The job you hate, the toxic relationship, the anxiety that won't go away, the weight you just can't get off. Guys, this isn't punishment, it's initiation. Many of us ignore the call for years, but the universe has a way of getting louder. What starts as a whisper eventually feels like a breakdown. I said a roar earlier. Now I'm saying it can turn into a full-fledged breakdown. Again, that's not failure. That's your hero's story trying to begin. In Self-Love Uni, we talk about answering the call with self-trust. Because the first step in every hero's journey isn't slaying the dragon. It's believing that you're worthy of the quest. The question is, will you say yes? Will you step into the unknown? Because that is where the real story begins. So now it's time to meet your dragon, right? Because every hero meets a dragon or a villain or a monster. But here's the truth. The biggest dragon is always internal. Always. For some, it's perfectionism. For some, it's self-doubt or shame or the inner critic. The villain wears many masks. Now, you might be saying, you're saying it's internal. Yeah, right. You don't know my mom. You don't know my ex-wife. You don't know my mother-in-law. You don't know my, brother. Like all these, if you knew these people, or you don't know my boss, like, yeah, right, the biggest dragon is always internal. Guys, hear me out. Just hear me out. I'm not saying that you don't have those people in your life that are a cause of some sort of contrast, stress, hardship, difficulty, all of the things. But just hear me out. We glamorize external battles, okay? But the hardest fight is with the stories that we tell ourselves. I'm not enough. I always fail. I'm too much. Okay, that's the real dragon. Shadow work is the hero's sword, because facing your darkness instead of running from it transforms it into power. This is transmutation. This is alchemy. This is what we're here to do. Neuroscience backs this up. When you confront fears, rather than avoid them, your amygdala literally calms down. The monster shrinks. In my art series, Mis Sombras, I explore this truth. Our shadows are not the enemy. They are the very material from which our strength is forged. Heroes don't slay their shadows, they integrate them. That is when the dragon becomes the teacher. And that is the purpose of shadow work. It's integration. It's not fixing, it's integrating. Okay? So we spoke earlier that not all heroes go it, or that no hero goes it alone. And every journey has guides and allies and mentors and mirrors. And I want you to know that a hero surrounded by love has more resilience. Connection literally regulates your nervous system, and co-regulation is how humans recharge. Sometimes allies show up as unlikely mirrors, okay? The person who challenges you, frustrates you, triggers you, they are often playing a role in your growth. I have this whole episode just about triggers. Guys, I go deep. I'm touching on all these things here because this whole idea of the hero's journey, or just the journey that you are on, you being the hero, is that it encompasses all the things I talk about, because it is the journey and it's all the things, the ups and downs, the ebbs, the flows, the highs, the lows. And so I've got all these resources, these wonderful free resources. The podcast is free. It doesn't cost you a penny to tune in. And so this is a wonderful free resource that you have at your disposal that covers all these topics. Like, even look, I talked just a second about co-regulation, literally regulates, or connection regulates your nervous system, and co-regulation is how we recharge. I've got a whole episode on the nervous system. So just, if you haven't, take a minute, scroll through all the episodes, look for titles that are relevant to you right now in this season. Guys, I think the longest is like an hour and 11 minutes. So these are digestible. And then the shortest is somewhere around 30, 35 minutes. So they're between like half an hour and an hour on average, right? And it's digestible. And this is here for you. I'm doing this for you, to help you, because I feel called to do this, but also because I want you to thrive. Okay? Now, mentors can be living or they can be ancient. Sometimes it's like a book that speaks to your soul that was written hundreds of years before you were born, right? So, sometimes it's a coach. Again, like I said, a teacher, a mentor, a podcast. You never know. It could be someone you follow on social media, on YouTube. Okay. Self-Love Uni is also designed to be that ally and mentor. It is a safe space to remember that you're not walking the journey alone. And it's kind of like the program itself is an ally and a mentor. And then within that program, Self-Love Uni and community, you got me. So it's like a mentor and ally within a mentor and ally. It's a twofer. Now, I want to ask you this. Who are your allies? Who's the first person or peoples that popped into your mind when I said that? Who reminds you of your power when you forget? And you can say me, because I'm here to remind you of your power. I'll be your ally. But who else? Because I'm not your only ally. I know I'm not. Heroes rise, but they rarely rise alone. You don't have to do it all alone. What are you trying to prove? Who are you trying to be? You don't have to do it all alone. You don't. Stop trying to do it all alone. Please stop. So let's talk about the death of the old self. Because every hero, again, remember, faces this symbolic death, the ego death, the moment when the old identity no longer fits. This is the cocoon moment. The goop. The old self dissolves so the new self can emerge. Painful? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. Psychologically, this feels like confusion, disorientation, depression even. But instead of being a sign that you're broken, it's actually proof that you're evolving. Culturally, we fear endings. But in hero stories, the death, quote unquote, always precedes rebirth. It's the turning point. And here's the irony. The part of you that dies is usually the part that you never needed anyway. The false identity that was built on fear or people pleasing or survival. This is where many people quit. They mistake the death for the end, not realizing it's the doorway. If you are in this space right now where you're grieving the old you, know this, you are closer to your rebirth than ever. And I had an episode a couple weeks that was when the old you stops fitting and the new you hasn't arrived yet, that you may like to tune into. It's all about liminality, which is the space between. So here we are. So we've talked about that. You've gotten through that. And then heroes don't just transform for themselves. They bring something back. It's the return with the elixir. Okay? Wisdom, healing, truth. A gift for the collective. The elixir isn't about saving the world. I know that's a grandiose lofty goal that many have. But that's not what it's about. It's about embodying the transformation so others see what's possible. When you heal your relationship with yourself, you change how you show up everywhere, in your family, in your community, in your work. That's the gift. Self-love is the ultimate elixir because when you radiate it, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. I want you to think of the ripple effect. Your kids learn from watching you. Your friends feel safer to grow. Your community becomes kinder. The hero returns not with glory, but with presence. And that presence is magnetic. So, what is your elixir? What wisdom are you meant to embody, not just for you, but for everyone whose life touches yours? You are the hero that you have been waiting for. Here's the plot twist. You've been the hero all along, guys. You have been the hero all along. We spend so much of life waiting for the right time, the right partner, the right sign. But the hero doesn't arrive later. The hero is already here. Claiming your inner hero doesn't mean that you're never going to struggle. It means that you trust yourself to rise again and again. And the most magnetic people aren't perfect. They're authentic because, as we've talked about more than once before, perfect people are actually like, nobody likes perfect people. If you watch movies and they're not relatable. Nobody likes the perfect person. The person who's perfect is often cast as someone that everyone's like, ugh, because it's not relatable, guys. So why are you trying to achieve it? Perfection. It ain't real. Okay, let's keep going. Now, all that I got off on my little tangent about perfection because, again, magnetic people aren't perfect. They're authentic and they've walked through fire and now they glow from within in all their imperfections. They're glowing. Okay? Being your own hero means you stop outsourcing your power. You stop waiting to be rescued. You stop waiting to be chosen. You realize you were the one holding the sword the whole time. And the more you step into this truth, the more your life shifts. And not because circumstances magically change, but because you do. You change. I'm going to tell you another story. This is about a man who once walked into a crowded square at night holding a lantern. And at first, nobody noticed him. People laughed at him. They teased him. They even told him that he looked foolish carrying a light when everyone else was stumbling in the dark together. Embarrassed, he almost blew it out just to fit in. But then he noticed, one by one, that people quietly began stepping toward him. Not loudly, not publicly or anything, but kind of with relief in their eyes because his light made it easier to see their own next step. And he realized the lantern wasn't just for him, it was for everybody who was tired of stumbling. Being the hero doesn't always mean slaying dragons. Sometimes it means daring to shine in a world that has grown used to the dark. Your self-love and your authenticity and your glow, that's the lantern. And when you choose to carry it, you give others permission to find their own light. So here is the invitation. Stop watching the movie and start living your own epic? Answer the call, face the dragon, receive the elixir, become the hero that you already are. Here's the truth, guys. Every hero's journey, every transformation, every breakthrough, it begins with one simple decision: to choose yourself, to finally say, I am worthy, I am ready, I am done playing small. That's what Self-Love Uni is all about. It is not just another program. It is a container for your becoming. Inside, you'll learn how to regulate your nervous system so you stop living in cycles of burnout and survival, and you'll uncover and rewrite the subconscious patterns that keep you sabotaging your growth. And you'll finally feel at home in your own skin so that you can stop chasing external validation and start glowing from the inside out. Imagine the ripple effect of that. Healthier relationships, more energy, more confidence, more ease in the choices you make, and maybe most importantly, the feeling that you're no longer betraying yourself just to keep the peace with others. So if you are listening to this and you know that you have been waiting for the right time, let this be your sign. Let this be your call to adventure. And unlike the hero who waits for the invitation, you get to choose to step forward right now. The doors are open, your seat is waiting, and your future self is already whispering or happily jumping up and down screaming, "Thank you! Thank you!" Click the link in the show notes. Join Self-Love Uni today. Let's begin this journey together, because the world doesn't just need a stronger version of you. The world needs the truest you, the loved up you, the magnetic you, and it all starts here. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It. I hope today's episode sparked something powerful within you. Remember, every step you take towards your vision counts, no matter how small. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a second to hit that subscribe button or leave a review. That would be amazing. Or share the podcast with someone who's ready to bring their dreams into reality too. And if you're looking to dive deeper, connect with me on social media at Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, or at BE_what you want. Or visit dreameditthenreallifedit.us for more resources on aligning your life, business, and dreams. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep manifesting your dreams into real life. Love you, friends.